Welcome back to the harbor. I'm your host, the Kino Cowboy. I'm here with my co-host, Scott Keith. And today, we're talking about the Wachowski sisters' first film, Bound, 1996, which I was very interested to watch because after Jupiter Ascending, I was like, I don't know what the Wachowskis are about.
That's one of the reasons I selected this movie. This was
Yeah.
mine, and I love The Matrix. I even really like The Matrix Reloaded, and I like parts of Revolutions. The mech stuff goes on way too long. It's so egregious, but um, I and I even hell, I like Matrix Resurrections. I like the fourth one. I'll say it. I
I like
like,
all the Matrix movies.
yeah, me too. I like
I
the
think I
Animatrix.
think that highway scene in Reloaded goes on too long. I
It
might
does
be
go.
the only
It,
person in
it's
existence that thinks
it,
that.
it's badass, but it does go on long. But also, they spent like 18 million just building their own highway, so they're like, we're gonna use this shit. Like we're gonna we're doing every. Um, I'm trying to think if there was like a MythBusters episode where they used that same set to like test one of their things. Like they needed a loop they could drive over and over.
That'd be crazy.
Yeah. But I remember that like MythBusters talked about it at some point. But we're not. This ain't a MythBuster episode. This is Bound, 1996. Because had avoided most, if not all, of their not no, no, I like V for Vendetta as well, but like I avoided a lot of their later films, such as Jupiter Ascending, just because I heard universal disdain. Um, and I mean, there's been some like critical revisionism, like on Speed Racer. I feel like a few years ago.
Oh yeah, no, people fuck with Speed Racer.
Yeah, I think like it came out because here's the thing: the Wachowskis are fucking dorks, and I mean that in the best. And like that's why the Matrix works so well because it's just like every dork influence from like kung fu cinema to video games to anime, which was not big at the time in the States, like, and putting it all together, cyberpunk, and like packaging it in this way where it has like the trappings of an action movie, but enough pop philosophy to draw people in. And it really was lightning in a bottle. But the thing is, like, and I do have to wonder kind of what studios are thinking, because I do think it was the tail end of like Starsky and Hutch and Bewitched, all of these like trying to be like TV based on old TV Land show movies. Um, so they wrote him a fat check for a Speed Racer movie, which in hindsight you're like, why would they do that? But I guess they took risks back then. Um, and also I think it's one of those things like a lot of people don't deal well with camp, and I feel like they especially didn't when that movie came out, which I haven't seen, even though
Yeah,
it's
it came out the wrong time. It came out in 2005 or 2006, somewhere right there when everything was switching to gritty.
gritty. Say like Casino Royale, Batman Begins,
Yeah, everything.
it,
Yeah.
and it's like a really
It's
campy,
like,
colorful
first of all,
movie.
this is a children's movie, so what's the big
Yeah.
deal?
Also
But
that. Also, what do you? It's based on like a. I'll be honest, a not good cartoon that was like poorly dubbed. And just and not, and that's not dogging on anybody who made the cartoon. It's just like the animation budgets for cartoons in the '60s were abysmal. People joke about that old Spider-Man stuff, but anyway, but it's one of those things. I never seen Bound, and I was like, well, where are the roots? Because I feel like there's all this hemming and hawing about the Wachowskis and the career, but then I don't talk to a lot of people who've seen Bound, honestly, because it's a small movie. There's basically two locations in a parking lot. There's two apartments. There's a parking lot. It's actually very inspiring because it's one of those where you watch it and you're like, oh, this is a movie. This was in theater. I could make something like this potentially.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
give
It's another
me
one of those mid 90s like
basic
Tarantino's
instinct.
first movie.
Mhm.
That's mainly just in that warehouse, and then the Clerks and all that kind of stuff was coming out. El Mariachi.
Yeah, and that stuff's hard to write, by the way. If you've ever tried to write anything like that, or if you've ever tried to write a play, I find it very difficult.
That's what I was thinking the whole time I was watching. I was like, this feels like a play. Even some of the way the dialogue's written, it feels like it could be a play.
It is, but I'm fine with that, and
Totally.
I'm also fine with like this like genre of movie, this erotic thriller. That's such a weird name for a genre, but the I mean, it's erotic and it's thrilling. So
Yeah,
it
so is
works.
Mulholland Drive technically.
Oh no, well, I thought of Mulholland Drive a lot because I'm like, these are the two. I don't know. I guess I'm thinking of all the big lesbian movies. I thought of The Handmaiden
And
too.
we've done a fair share of lesbian movies on this show.
But this here's the thing. I would argue I don't think Mulholland Drive is too male gazy. Part of my problem with The Handmaiden, I love The Handmaiden, but like it gets real male gazy toward the end.
Yeah.
And that I mean that to me that takes it from like a 9.5 to like a 9 or an 8.5. Not that I mean not that I'm IGN giving out
Yeah, we
numbers,
don't do that on
but
here.
yeah, because we're
We do it when it's convenient.
anyway, you can check out Adrian's letterboxed. The
Yeah.
but um no, but I was like, all right, well let's figure out this film. And I'm cool with that when it's like, let's really heighten things because there is almost like a soapy aspect to it, especially at the beginning, like maybe that's not the right word. Melodrama is probably better. Um and it does border into like self-parody at points. But what I'm saying is, and I'm gonna bring this up throughout, even in being the identity that I am, like I mean, their entire filmography, it's impossible to look at without looking through the lens of like they made this as like either closeted or I think more likely unknowing trans women. Like
Yeah,
I
that's
think at this, I think at this point, like subconscious, and this is just speculation. Both Adrian and I are straight and cisgender, but sue us, uh, but yeah, and listen, I always say this: we're both supporters of the transgender community, and
go check out our Funeral Parade of Roses
yeah,
episode
we made that exclusively to deflect from criticism of
that
people.
have clout with the LGBT.
Yeah, that's the only reason we just did it to virtue signal to everyone.
Yeah.
Um, no, we can make fun of liberal hypocrisy and still support trans people. I think we all understand that at this point.
Yes.
And so I don't know. Just saying, if I say something stupid, which is inevitable. Um, but no, it's really interesting because like, dude, I couldn't make this up. The first line of this movie, after you get like a really sick opening title sequence where it's like bam, like in big concrete letters, and
Yeah.
reminds me of like the letters in the Matrix or the numbers where it like zooms into the zero at the beginning of the Matrix. It's kind of similar.
It was like really cool to watch. Now, I think in a way is more interesting
It's more interesting. It is because
because
otherwise it's
they've
just like,
transitioned and like to see it through that lens, watching it when it first came out, it's like, oh, this is a cool, stylish
yeah,
film
and
that's
it's
like
very edgy. I'm sure in
you might
'97.
worry about the male gaze, quote unquote, back then, but now it's like insane to see that contextualized through the transformation of these trans women.
Right. And the first line of dialogue we hear during the opening like credits or sequence or whatever title is, I have this image of you inside of me, like a part of me.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, obviously there's a sexual reading of that or a romantic, but it's like screaming at like the first line is, I have a woman inside of me. I'm like, did
Yeah.
you realize that when you wrote this? Like
That's
it's
like Tobias when he writes that book, The Man Inside Me.
in Arrested Development. You're just like, yeah. He writes a. It's for those of you who haven't seen Arrested Development, one of the greatest comedies ever made, TV show. And Tobias is like doesn't realize that he's gay, or like is closeted or suppresses it, and writes a book called The Man Inside that's like self help, and then only gay men buy it because it's obviously like a coming out thing that he doesn't really.
Yeah.
It's really funny. It's really funny. And mostly holds up. No, I would say it holds up pretty well actually, but no, but it is really interesting, and I think it's like that's what I was getting at with the male gaze thing. It's like because there's kind of men didn't make this movie. I mean,
Yeah.
they identified as at the time they were signed as, but like deep down, they
Yeah.
certainly had those sympathies. It's very queer. I'm there's even like I mean, obviously, I think it's two part. I think Bound and the BDSM imagery is obvious. It's like obviously part of that's a ploy to be like edgy or shocking and like draw people in that way. It's like that. Was it that Fincher quote? People are perverts. He says that's his theory for storytelling. He's like, people are perverts. They'll watch, weird shit. But but I also think like
She's literally trapped in a closet.
is she in a closet?
I mean, pretty much, you know.
Yeah, I don't think yeah, in the bedroom. Yeah, I mean she's trapped. She's trying to get out. I mean, even then, it's like they're fighting the patriarchy. This whole movie, like
Yeah.
they're fighting a guy waving his like piece around.
Yeah.
Very. I think even what does he say? He doesn't say dicks out, but like when the mobsters walk in and he's like fake getting out of the shower, he's like, "Whoa, you walked in with your like pieces out or your cocks out," or he's something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, he does.
They even say that. Um, so I mean, you have all these elements, and you also have like I think similar to there's definitely this movie's full of stock characters, and they're mostly well realized. Like we don't get a ton of backstory because it's a shorter movie, and also it's like it moves at a pretty good clip. It's a thriller. It's supposed to, but there's these stock characters, and it kind of reminds me of like Mulholland Drive playing with stock characters to kind of play with the idea of like Hollywood archetypes.
Yeah.
Um, this is almost playing with the like you have like the bombshell and the butch like girl and lesbian, and even that is like I almost feel like I'm trying to remember Gina Gershon's character name. But anyway, I almost feel like that's them exploring through that character, like what is gender and what is gender presentation, because it already gets like complicated when because I remember even like middle school people were like, oh, why do lesbians say they like women and then dress like dudes, stuff like really just like one-dimensional stuff like that. And I almost feel like that's a character where they can like play with these ideas. I don't know in what way, I don't know what was going through their head. I also just between this and the rave scenes and the matrixes, I feel like they went to a lot of BDSM clubs and did some kinky shit. I know that sounds like I'm joking when I say that,
Yeah,
but
no,
I think
I get it.
but it's I honestly
They were in the culture.
they were in the culture. Let me put it that way. Yeah, there's no way you put that much black leather in your
Yeah,
movie.
no way.
Like it's grease. We'll get back to that, but yeah. And then first of all, as soon as you see this, first of all, I want to say I looked it up because I'm like the score, even from the opening, I'm like, this has to be the same guy as the Matrix because it has these long strings, like, that's a terrible impression, but uh, like these long strings foreboding. And then I looked in, yeah, they've been working with the same composer, Don Davis, for like all the Matrix movies. Universal Soldier of the Return, a Goofy movie. Oh man, that's a
Hell
good.
yeah.
Hell yeah, Beauty and the Beast. Wow, I didn't know he did Beauty. Oh, that's the '88. That's the. Is that the? No, that's a TV show with Sarah Connor and Ron Perlman. Linda, what's her name? I feel bad calling her Sarah Connor.
Linda Hamilton.
Linda Hamilton. I mean, she divorced James Cameron, got half his stuff, so I don't feel that bad. But to the point, I see her on the con circuit. I'm like, what do you? Did you have James Cameron? Anyway, but
It was great to see really the visual language that I love so much from The Matrix in this proto way. Like you
yeah,
get the camera when it's like following down the phone cord into the wall and stuff, and then like the overhead shots, just
so
so
many
much.
overhead shots, so much kinetic. Like yeah, like you said, peering down the hallway. Like you could tell they really honed their visual style in this, and
Yeah.
the intense. They have a very, I guess, what would you call it? Not monochromatic, dichromatic. It's like this movie. It's black and white, and I don't know if that's supposed to represent morality or the gender binary, or if it just looks cool or good and evil or all of the above. It could, who knows. Um, but I do feel it's like, all right, we made a movie that's all black and white. Now let's make a movie that's black and green, and that's what the Matrix
Yeah.
like. There's let's just go down the color. And now we're gonna make one that's black and orange and has Mila Kunis and Channing Tatum, like stuff like that. Um, but no, it is very cool, and I would have to sit down and watch it again, and almost take notes on how many shots. But like, if you've seen The Matrix, which I've seen several times, I mean, it was a movie I watched a lot growing up.
We got to see the 25th anniversary this past year
Right.
in
And we
theaters.
walked and we walked out and we just looked at each other and almost simultaneously we're like, there's no fat on that movie. Like there's not
Yeah.
a drop of fat on that entire movie or script. No shot, no line, no word. Not a single word in that script is misplaced. I Matrix might be a 10 out of 10 movie to me. Or close enough. Again, I keep saying I don't give scores, and I've already given out like 3, but it's pretty damn perfect. Um, and even then, like you have like some of those like maybe I'm reading too much into it, but a lot of their characters are very emotionally repressed. And like even in this, like you're bound, you're voiceless. Um, who knows what like subconsciously
Well, who knows how long Jennifer Tilly's character has been having feelings bubble up and has only now maybe had the chance to possibly act on them. Maybe that's why she jumps in so hard. Maybe
Well,
it's
that
been,
is one thing, and like it's not a criticism of the movie I have, but it is one you just have to buy. Is like she is so desperate to get out to this guy who I'm sure has like slapped her around and been crappy, and she had no real life before this. It seems like,
and also she
um,
doesn't want to see mob shit probably.
yeah. Also, she's like, oh, I'm in too deep. I'm essentially a mob wife now, even though I don't think they're married, because he does mention that they've been together for years. She and her
Yeah,
boyfriend.
5 years.
Yeah, he says 5 years. That's right. Um, so it's been a while, and we don't know. It's something you have to speculate. I feel like Gina Gershon's character is pretty comfortable with her sexuality. I mean, she's a felon. She's been. It's like, what are you gonna do? Call her a slur? Like she's seen worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
totally.
she has nothing to lose in terms of image. She's like, I'm a repair woman who has in a felon. Like, what are gonna people do? Call me a dyke? Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Relatively. Um, and she's just had to whatever life she's had has been very like rough and tumble. Have to fend for yourself. So like, but Jennifer Tilly, I feel like her character like didn't come from means. Violet didn't come from means, but was like maybe came from like lower middle class, had nothing, found means, and now she's like afraid to keep it. And also, she's a mob wife. She has to keep these sort of appearances. But also, we don't know, is what I was getting at, is like, we don't know if Violet has had sexual encounters with women in the past. I mean, she seems pretty confident in it. So I, I could read it either way.
I feel
It
like she
just,
hasn't had a real chance until now.
yeah,
Because that to me that would answer for her like true desperation and how quickly she jumps into risk.
it's also I hate that I'm saying this. It's such a hack joke of like it's an old hack joke of like what do lesbians bring on the second date? A moving van. Of like how quickly they get together. But that's kind of what this
Hey,
movie.
my bisexual fiance would back that up, so
Okay, good. I'm glad we can
it's
do
not just
that.
a hack joke.
Virtue signaling cast. It's kind of funny,
She makes
but
fun, I know, you know what I mean. Like she makes fun of lesbian stereotypes all the time.
yeah,
So,
she can do it.
but I will say I had a very old head moment. I felt like a boomer a week ago because I used the term lipstick lesbian. She's like, we don't really call them that anymore. You can just call them like film or something like that. I was like, oh
Yeah, it
okay.
is something. Well, that's what they're playing with in
Like,
this.
damn, I'm old as fuck.
Of like the lipstick. Well, no, because I've also dated bisexual women. And I've heard like one referred to herself as that, or like she'd said like I've been like that, or the way that like maybe I don't know if it's gotten better or not. I'm not in the community so much, but like by erasure is a term I've heard.
Yeah.
Of being like, oh well, you're not a gold star. Um, by the way, one joke I heard, this is unrelated, but you know how like gold star gays and gold star lesbians, they've never been with the opposite sex. A platinum star gay man is one who's born with a C-section, and then is also. I heard that the other day. I'm like, that's awesome. Yeah. I guess the other version of that, if you don't have sex with anybody in your C-section, you're just like super incel. Like you've never anyone's. Anyway, not relevant to this movie, but um, no, it is. Jennifer Tilly, dude, is like, I wonder what her career would be like if she didn't have that voice, because she's It's
She's
like
like
she,
Joey Lauren Adams.
yeah, she is. She really is. Like to the point I get them confused a little bit. I think she's a really good actress. Certainly
Yeah,
in
she's
this,
cool.
she's not in a ton of big stuff.
Yeah, but
I'm trying.
she's in some like she goes
She's
to a
done.
lot of horror cons because she's in
Yeah.
Chucky movies.
Hmm.
So she gets a lot of convention cycles. and and then most people, if you don't know who she is, would know her as Bonnie from Family Guy.
Yeah. That's one way to
It's
put
funny to
it.
say, but like, it's a show she's been
No, it's
doing
your
for
biggest thing.
25
What's the
years.
weird thing? One of the weird things that took me out of this movie is Christopher Maloney shows up in it as like a bro. And I know him from Law and Order and also
Yeah,
the
I was like,
really
this guy looks
shitty
familiar, and Parker looked up and she did like the Leo DiCaprio like pointing
Oh
meme, and
yeah.
she was like, Law and Order.
Yeah, and he's such like a mid-90s douche bro. Like
Yeah.
my father will hear about this. It's really fun. And he's good in it. It's actually, I think he does a good job. And
Yeah, because it's got that kind of leaning towards the Y2K postmodern take on the mob as it is then, which is where I was going with this because half of this movie is kind of a mob movie, and this is right before The Sopranos came out, and the guy who plays Caesar, his name, this is like the exact character that he plays in The Sopranos, Ralph
oh, is it
Cifaretto.
what's it? Joe Pag I can never say it.
However you say it. Yeah, he plays Ralph Cifaretto, and it is the exact character. And I'm like, this is the movie that got him in The Sopranos. And The Sopranos is big on that idea of like, yeah, we're in the mob, but it's not what it used to be. I feel like I came in towards the end, and that's kind of the vibes I get from this
Right. It's yeah,
entourage that
well,
shows
he
up.
says like they just call it the business,
Yeah,
which is also what maybe they meant this. I doubt it, but um that's what they in LA, that's what they call the film industry. They just say the business, which is very pretentious. They're
yeah,
like, are you in the business for show business? Even just say, are you in show business? Are you in show biz? Like just say
yeah.
that. I don't know. Something about it. This just roast me. It's like, oh, we're the only business, we're the only industry in this entire part of the country that's also a big shipping hub and everything. And
And no
has
one actually shoots here because we've made it too expensive for everybody. So now they shoot everywhere but Hollywood.
yeah, now they shoot in Atlanta because
Yeah,
also
Savannah, even Adam Scott. It's funny. Ben Stiller and Adam Scott do like the official Severance podcast, which is kind of funny because it's your own show and you're talking about it, and you can't get some of it's fluff, but some of it's actually interesting. But
I feel like that's the modern director's commentary because people don't buy DVDs anymore.
yeah,
Podcasts.
and
Anyway, continue. What were
it's
you
like
saying?
they have like two sponsored ads every 30 minutes. I hate podcasts that do that shit. I don't know. Have one ad break in the middle and then like one at the end or something, but don't
Yeah, and if
break it
you
up
want
a
to see
bunch.
how that works, sponsor us. Anyway,
Yeah.
what were you saying
No, I'm
about?
saying like Adam Scott was talking about how they went over to Ireland to do a shoot because it was actually cheaper to take this crew all the way to Ireland and shoot instead of doing it in LA on a soundstage and shit. And I
That
was like, wow, that's
now
incredible.
is
He
it
just
the
says that's how it is now.
is it the unions?
That's yeah, they
Or is
get
it just the
they get
cost of is it the cost of living so high to get competitive?
no, it's just
That's
they've
dude,
made it so
and that's
expensive to
Ben
shoot.
Stiller.
Like the tax breaks everywhere else gives are so cheap, like so
California
helpful.
has high taxes, dude.
Yeah.
Bunch of liberals. They do have high taxes though. I don't know. That whole city is so fucking weird. Anyway, uh,
But
and
yeah, like this movie shifts from like a lesbian erotic thriller to just straight up a mob movie in like
right. No, the
one
first
location
act is
mall.
all setting up their relationship, which is
Yeah.
very quick, but like I get arguably at the beginning of any relationship, you don't see the person, you see who you want them to be or who they you want them to be for you, you know? Um, so I don't know. This is gotta
And
be
I
a hell.
do I like that
Is
we
there
do
a
get
bound to not as soon as I said it, not the Kanye music video. We're definitely we're not we haven't fucked with Kanye for years, but
yeah, I
definitely
was gonna open it with a joke. I was like the prequel to Kanye West's Bound 2, but I was like, fuck Kanye. He doesn't need the
no, after all this shit, he's
yeah.
had publicity. He doesn't need us helping him out. You know how
Yeah.
he always asks us. But the No, is there going to be a Bound 2 that's just going to be like a really bad breakup? Because they're like, we've known each other 2 days and like moved across the country with millions of
Yeah, they
dollars.
take the money and then they get to some location. They're like, well, you're kind of boring.
Yeah, dude. What if they get into like, I don't know. It's like you. So all you watch is K drama. Like that's all you watch. It's like that's all. That's all the time. There's. I joke about that, but I do think. Speaking of Christopher Maloney, I had a relationship that seriously suffered because like Law and Order SVU was constantly in on my house, and I'm like, if I have to hear like one more screaming woman from the other room, like I don't like. It's not good. It's
Yeah.
not good for me. It's not escapist entertainment. It's just distressing. Uh,
Well, yeah. And I feel like because of the plot, there's nothing you can really do, but Corky does get put to the wayside in the second half
he
because
does.
there's nothing, she's just kind of waiting for shit to happen. So I don't know if that's a flaw, but it's certainly like she felt a little underdeveloped. But I do like that there's that one shot where she's like in the mirror and she's like, "What are you doing, Corky? What are you doing?" She knows she's irresponsible with herself. So I like that aspect.
Who knows
It's
what
like,
she's.
I mean, come on, you're sleeping with a mobster's girlfriend.
Oh
Like,
yeah, so stupid. Like,
risk is
I mean,
insane.
not a lot of self-preservation, and also she's probably just like, yeah, fuck it. The because we get. I mean, when I said earlier, this it borders on like parody. It really is. Like you have the woman coming over who's more butch, therefore doing manly things.
Yeah,
She's a plumber. It's like a porn setup. It's like the
yeah, it
most
is.
cliche. It's like what they would parody in The Big Lebowski, but like that, and that's what they're playing with,
Yeah.
obviously. But I mean, to the point of, I don't know if anybody's ever called the Wachowskis subtle. They're but they're pretty unsubtle filmmakers in a lot of ways, which is not bad, by the way.
Yeah.
Um, but when she's like gripping the pipe and it's dripping, like it's like which is so interesting. And although it's interesting because like I talk about this avoids the male gaze mainly because like their sex scenes are like tender and sensual, but it doesn't feel like they're trying to, titillate, if that makes sense. There's an emotional base to them. Also, this is part of my problem with the handmaiding. They're doing sex acts that lesbians actually do, instead of like porny stuff. Without, but it is so ridiculous, but it is also weird. It's like, is there another way to represent this that isn't phallic? Like, what does it mean that the lesbian relationship is represented with like a phallic dripping pipe, or does it mean anything? Am I reading too much into it? It's hard for me to not try to read too much into everything, considering who these filmmakers are now and which is who they were.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was like
It's good
such a
visual shorthand.
it's a slick but obvious setup. Like, oh, I dropped my earring in here. Yeah.
Yeah,
But when they do have sex, it what got to me is Corgi saying, "I can see again" for his post orgasm. It's so funny, but it's so powerful. Like, nuts so good that you feel alive again.
yeah. It's dude. There's a brutal line later. Um, when he sees her finally figures out what's happening, he's like, "What did she do to you?" And she's like, "Everything you couldn't." And it was like, "Oh
I audibly was like, "Ooh."
oh yeah, no, that's I yeah saw that. Did you watch this with your fiance at all? Was she in it?
She was down for some of it. Well, she
Okay.
came in later. She was running errands, and then
Okay, so she missed all the
she would
sapphic
have
stuff.
liked it. She likes lesbian erotic
Yeah,
thrillers.
no, she likes Love Lies Bleeding. I like Love Lies Bleeding.
Yeah, I
Not
just
so much
didn't have
this.
time to wait on her today.
Oh no, yeah, well, no, don't.
But
She's
like, yeah, I think she would have liked it.
no, I'm clearly the more important relationship is your YouTube partner. Um, but it is interesting. I do wonder how, and I didn't read anything. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I didn't read any research of this. I wanted this to be like just raw my thoughts because I really do wonder. Like, and I'm just gonna look real quick, like what the contemporary reception was. Which, by the way, this is really cool. I'm just reading, and this is publicly, easily Googleable public knowledge, but like because because they didn't, I don't think intimacy coordinator was really a job back then, not the way it is now. Um, they got Susie Bright, like a sex educator and feminist writer, whom they were fans of, which is because they're in the culture.
Well, that's pretty
Um,
telling.
yeah, exactly. It's like, you read feminist literature? What are you, a woman? Only women can be feminist.
Oh no, my girl caught me reading feminist literature.
And she broke up with me because I'm not a man. My girl saw me reading Judith Butler, and she's like, more like Judith Butler. Okay, I'm stop.
Butt
Um,
liquor.
okay, but no, she ended up being like the de facto intimacy coordinator, which I think is really cool. And I also
Oh,
want to say another thing: the music playing when they're doing the plumber scene. It's not as over the top as it could be, but like it's definitely like a porny sort of like some of the music playing is in it. It's a lot of fun. Um, so it had good reviews at the time, because it was stylish and stuff. Some people said no sense of humor, blah blah blah. But um, yeah, I do think some people um were like thought it was like masochistic or sadistic to the audience. And I do think some of that is like, if you're a young filmmaker or pair of filmmakers, like, and you're like, this is my chance to get people's attention, you kind of gotta go big, you know, with like violence and like mine, like lesbian, like, and you're trying to break out. It's your first feature, get noticed. Like it kind of makes sense to me,
sure.
And also, I said earlier, I don't think they're very subtle filmmakers in a lot of ways. That maybe in some ways they have a good mix, I think, of like, there's some that maybe for general audiences, like references or like concepts in the Matrix that might be more subtle, and some that are like very obvious, like he's a Christ figure, like, stuff like
Yeah,
that.
the fact that they brought such a high concept to the masses with the Matrix and is now such a understood
That the
like
red pill is a shorthand for the alt right, even though
unfortunately,
it's made by trans people. Um, but it's it is really interesting. That's its own beast.
yeah.
I do think it's good that, like, I mean, so I've heard queer people complain that, like, at least traditionally it's gotten better now, even in the past 10 years. Like, a lot of queer stories were like trauma porn, even something like Brokeback Mountain. It's like, have you seen Brokeback Mountain?
No.
Oh man, it's really good. I need to rewatch it, but it's like, it's all about like the pain and the discrimination, and like a lot of times in those stories, like, there's an unhappy ending. Like, I really like that in this, like, I'm jumping to the end, but like they get to ride off into the sunset, which is like a very like queer positive, like sex positive ending, honestly, versus
Sure.
like your more like tragic sort of endings. Now, does that relationship last? Absolutely not. But
But yeah, no, it reminds me I see so many TikToks of black folks making fun of like how they're like, can't we just get a movie that isn't set during slavery or Martin Luther King?
right, it's I did read some articles a while back of, like, I think post Get Out, there were a lot of black horror movies that were like, the real horror is racism. And then I think some black critic was like, dude, I don't want every black movie I watch to be about racism. Like, sometimes I just want to go watch One of Them Days with Kiki Palmer and says that one's good. Or stuff like that. So I don't know. I appreciate that this didn't go that way.
Yeah.
It's a hard balance, I think, because like I think happy endings are more satisfying for most audiences most of the time. I think earlier, as a writer, I would have like unhappy. I would like make it a point to have like dark endings and stuff. And like, you really got to find out like what works for your story, and then that's something that, I don't know. It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like That original alternate ending for Clerks or Dante is just fucking gunned down at the end.
Oh, that's no, that's stupid.
It's like, dude, you're being fucking miserable. Kevin Smith working at a convenience store. It's not that bad. Like to feel like you have to equate it to getting gunned down at the end. Like,
No, it's I've worked menial jobs. I haven't done them for like 10 years at a time, like those guys have, or 20 or 30 or however. Well, I don't know. I didn't see Clerks 3, but it's yeah, it's not that bad. But that's what I'm saying. Like it's a very that could be a very easy like student filmy thing to do.
yeah.
And I'm glad they avoid that. Not only for like the political reasons of like, see, you can kill the patriarchy too and get money. But also I don't know, it's just nice, you know. Especially when the rest of the movie's so bleak. It is. I do understand this being. I mean, I'm pretty desensitized, as are you in your in our own ways, but because we've done so many of the watch a lot of movies and we grew up with the internet. But I can see this being like painful for you know. I don't know, like our parents if they went in the '90s when it came out. I mean, your mom would hate it, but for obvious reason, for obvious that there's any that it even acknowledges sex, let alone homosexuality. But I can imagine it being tough for people.
I had some weird, yeah. Sometimes I just like have brain farts. Like in my head, I was so obsessed with Challengers last year that I had it in my head. I was like, on my family vacation, I was like, we're gonna have a movie night. I'm gonna have everyone watch Challengers because it's so good. And I'm like, thinking it didn't happen. I was thinking like a week later, like, what was I thinking? Why would I think that would go over well?
Do you want me to? Yeah, I'll one up that cringe because this actually happened. We had like a Secret Santa like office thing once at this like feminist nonprofit I worked at. So I was like, oh, what's something feminist I could get people? And I got a Blu-ray of Mad Max Fury Road. And I don't think anybody, to my defense, the deputy director, who's essentially the director at that point of the organization, she got it. She was like, no, I actually saw that. That's a feminist movie. So she had my back. Everyone else was like, why is the only man in this office giving us an action movie? And I'm like, you don't understand. This is my bell hooks, guys. This is my feminist scholar. I also like bell
No,
hooks.
fuck it. You did them a favor.
No, I did. I agree. I almost got them Conan the Barbarian as a child. I was like, that would be too.
That's a bit different.
No, that would be stupid. But I'm like, no, this is a feminist masterpiece. um, it is really. Oh, also, this is a side note. Like, as the sex scenes are well directed, but there's also a point after she's been like plumbing and like going in pipes where like she sticks her the Violet sticks Gina Corky's fingers in her mouth. I'm like, that's disgusting. I'm not turned on by this movie. That's disgusting. But she is there. Also, there's a point where she was like putting her hands between her legs, and for a second there, I was like, what if there's a penis there? That would be crazy for a '96 movie to like be that bold. I don't think movies today are that bold.
No, they're not.
They should be.
Even after the second lay, I felt like things escalated really fast with in the way that Jennifer Tilly's character is like suddenly being kind of mean and dissing Corky's aesthetic and shit. And I was just like, whoa. I don't know. I feel like they could have maybe slowed that down just a little bit.
Yeah, they
But
had to get a
they
lot.
just wanted to get to it. I get it.
And what was she like dissing her aesthetic? Was she was just calling her? I'm trying to remember what she was saying.
She's like, I don't need a tattoo on my arm to represent something. I don't know, but it was just
Yeah,
like
she's kind of doing that. And the tattoo, I'm trying to remember. It didn't really come into play. I thought
I
it
know
might.
she's insecure probably, but like
Yeah, she absolutely is. Even though they're both beautiful in this movie to me.
yeah, but I will say Gina Gershon or
Mhm.
however you say her name, Corky. I realized with that scene where like she's outside and she sees the mobsters taking that guy into the apartment and it's like in slow-mo. To me, she looks like a lesbian Jeff Goldblum. And
All right,
I could not unsee it. Maybe
I maybe a
I don't
little.
know. I'm gonna leave it to the watchers at home. I'm
Okay,
gonna
I
put
thought she looked like Gina Gershon personally.
I don't know. There's something about her, but I do like that. It's kind of like there's a whole aspect of the film that they can hear it through each other's walls, which comes
Mm.
into play a lot because it's thin, shitty apartment uh, walls, and you would think if they've been living there for so long, they would know this, and that it's pretty foolish to do this kind of mob business in an apartment complex, yelling like that and like banging his head into the toilet and shit like that.
Yeah,
So
I was like, and I even in my head, I'm like, this is because they couldn't get another location. But the fact that they're doing this like intimidation mob tactics in his own apartment, I'm like,
yeah,
this would never. I feel like this would never really happen. That's like if you saw them doing that kind of stuff at Henry Hill's house in Goodfellas. Like that's just not where you do that stuff.
yeah. Well, I could see it trying to be like I said, like that later era mob era, trying to be like that kind of like Sopranos. But even then, it's just like
This is the
okay.
only real estate we can afford. This
Yeah,
apartment.
you got to work with what you work with. I just
No,
thought that was funny because, like,
I'm Joe Pantoliano. My suit's too big for me in this movie.
it,
the no, uh, it even like speaking of them being in the culture, I'm just spitballing. But when Corky, which is a terrible name because it just makes me think of Corky Romano, that which is that's like considered one of the worst SNL movies if you don't know.
oh
But
man,
yeah, I saw part of it on TV once. I was like, oof. This is that 2 p.m. Comedy Central slot back in the day. But she's like, where do you get arrested for? She's like, redistribution of wealth, or that's what I tell people when I'm trying to get money. I'm like, this is the most like queer Marxist movie.
it was in your face. Yeah,
This is like insane. I mean, it's what people would complain about, like being woke, but they didn't have the internet, so people just had to, I don't know, what they do, listen to Rush Limbaugh or something. Um, Also, just going down the list, like this is the most wallpaper heavy movie, one of the most wallpapery movies I've ever seen. Like they're always up against some sort of like wallpaper pattern.
yeah, they do like that, and they have that specific style of that complex, that old building that they meet Morpheus in when he gives them the pills,
Right.
and it's got that wallpaper. It's like really high ceiling and with the chandeliers. Such a good art direction.
It is, and it definitely feels like not even necessarily gentrified, but like this is an older, crappier building that they've kind of remodeled. I mean that's what Corky's doing. So obviously they're doing
Yeah.
that. That's why the walls are thin. And I've lived in buildings like that. And they're in Chicago, I think. But I mean, you do see something. I was trying to read into the symbolism because they're in a point where they're almost like touching the same part of the opposite sides of the wall because
Yeah.
they're like trying to emotionally connect or whatever the symbolism is. But you have this very like austere, like nominally beautiful but very austere sort of like gray minimalist, you know, wallpaper on one side, and it is beautiful. Like it's a beautiful apartment. It's very cool, but it's also like cool in like a almost like corporate, stolid, soulless way, um, and versus like a more like warm, flowery, dare I say, yonic or vaginal design, um, like Georgia O'Keeffe. That was a
All
DJ
right, we switched
wallpaper.
audio for Scott because of stupid Blue Yeti troubles.
Yeah,
Now, okay,
you don't even. I mean, you do whatever. You edit these. You say it.
yeah,
Okay, so the wallpaper in this movie is kind of fascinating to me because on the one hand you have Jennifer Tilly, who's like weirdly emotionally repressed, like figuring out who she really is, because she's been like in a man's world, been a mob wife. So she has these like very austere environments, and like I don't think, again, another word I don't think that has ever been used to describe the Wachowskis as minimalist. Um, Although like there is a sleekness to what they do. So but um, on the one hand, you have this like devoid of character sort of interior. It's cool looking, it's a nice apartment, but at the same time, like I don't know, what are you connoting with that apartment? Is it just power and wealth? Um, like that's how I feel about how certain, I don't know, how certain like double income, no kid sort of houses like kind of look, of being like they're very slick but kind of soulless, and it's just
yeah,
there to be
totally.
like, yeah, it's just there to be like, oh, look at this wealth, like look at these granite countertops. I mean,
And he's
granite
obviously
countertops,
he puts all his money. into that kind of stuff. Because I was thinking like the whole time, it's like you're missing $2 million, but you don't have enough laying around to like replace it in a pinch.
Well, that's a lot of liquid cash to have around. Like you
I
can't
get it, but
and
also
you can't
like,
just go to the bank and withdraw $2 million of cash.
I
Like
feel like he could put together $2 million if he was actually, I don't know, if he put his mind to it. If he had that connection, I don't know.
yeah, but how much time passes do you think between them robbing him and the big guy, Big Kahuna getting there? Like 12 hours even?
Nah, yeah, less than that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
Well, here's the thing. That's the whole point of this guy is like clearly you can tell this guy's been unraveling for a long time. You know,
yeah,
the life is catching up with him. He's unstable. It doesn't attract the most stable, forward thinking people who they do have the personalities where like, yeah, they do all this, but then they piss away all their money on like booze and, nice booze and whatever this apartment is and everything. Um, but anyway, that's composed of like even though she's still working on building it, like her identity. Corky's like her surroundings, in that apartment are much more like floral, dare I say, Georgia O'Keefean. I don't know, just more lively, even though it's like under construction. There's something about that. That was a
yeah,
lot of
that's
waste.
hey, that's true. It is under construction. I didn't think about that aspect actually.
Yeah, I'm pulling stuff out of my ass. I don't know if any of this
Hey,
track.
no, I mean it's reading to me.
It's reading. I'm not saying just for our viewers. I'm not saying this is gospel. This is all just pure BS speculation on my part. You know, um, is this what gender and women's studies degrees do? They just like watch movies and that was mean. I have a creative writing degree. I can't talk. My degree is stupid. The I do this. You know,
I did
um,
get a visceral reaction when that you see that finger get cut off and it just plops onto the ground. It's like, oh man.
oh yeah, did that get you?
Yeah, it was good.
You're worse about gore than I am though. That stuff bothers you
I
more.
wasn't like fucked up about it. I just thought it
Yeah,
was like a good shot of like,
it is a good show. It's simple, it's obviously like a prop finger, but what is real fingers are expensive, I guess. I don't know.
cutting off an appendage. No, I'm just
Oh
playing.
shit.
No, I'm
No,
just playing around.
that's definitely reading too much into it. Just
Yeah.
gonna ask you 10 questions.
I
Um,
love the I do love the whole aspect of him in like 5 minutes covering up bodies and like putting things back where they are or in different places, covering the pool of blood with a carpet and like you get the fake out of like, oh, the cops are gonna catch him in this scene. They're gonna figure out something's off, but he plays it straight and he gets out of it. And you're like, oh, that's interesting that he
and it's in a
actually,
realistic way. It's believable too.
yeah. It's a good setup of like, oh, he actually got out of this somehow. And then the other guy, the mobster of all people, notices that his apartment's been set up and changed, which this guy must be a freak, attention to detail.
No, he's not. I don't know if somebody moved the chairs around. I mean, I've been to your apartment. If so you move the chairs around and stuff, I
I
might.
know, but it's just like such a good way to catch the viewer off guard and like make your
It does catch the
stomach
viewer off
sink.
guard. It's good. It also like reveals character about that guy. That guy seems way more level headed than everyone else in that movie
Yeah.
because it does a good job of Caesar is like he's not completely incompetent. Clearly, like he's actually good at his job. He's good at like money laundering, even though he like literally launders money in this almost. And like he's able to cover up that stuff real well. So like he knows what he's doing in a lot of ways, but he's just panicking and he's going crazy, literally.
Yeah, like you said, obviously it's been building up for a while because the way he immediately spirals is fascinating to watch, especially when he assumes the money's at Johnny's house and he goes to Johnny's place and tears it up, not thinking about the consequences of what it would look like to tear up the apartment. Like foolish. And like having to sit on that as his partner of I know where the money is and I just watched him kill three people and now get into deeper shit because of this.
Well, let's be honest. Like, she puts way too much trust in Corky anyway, because she's like, okay, yeah, you're a thief, you've done this before, but you also went to prison. Like you got caught. So um I don't know. Like, and it's, but again, it's written and performed in a believable enough way where you're like, she's telling you this plan, and you're like, I don't know, could work, like at least in movie logic. And then obviously it doesn't, but in a weird way, like you almost want to believe it could work. And that's just because she's charismatic and she sells it.
Yeah. And
But
Corky does like say this is stupid. And we have to go piece by piece and kind of break this down. Who's this? Why would this happen? And so she tries to cover her bases, but even then, you can tell it's just, yeah, it's still not enough. And
there's
it
no
was,
way, because she even says that thing like she's trying to be a badass. She's like, I can have sex with somebody I just met, but to rob somebody, I have to know them better than I know myself. And then she asks like 5 questions and then she's like, all right, I have a plan. Like
yeah, the idea of 2 million was overwhelming to her for
it's
sure.
it's a lot of money, especially back then.
And Jennifer Tilly doesn't make the best choices because, like, there's no reason why she couldn't have just waited until he took the bodies out to call Corky and say the coast is clear instead of saying, hey, he's about to take the bodies out, then the coast will be clear. It's like you could have just waited until he did it.
Yeah, there's definitely some stuff like that in this movie. Um, there's even stuff where I'm like, I don't know, if you want to run away anyway, like you could probably shoot him at some point. Like you could have shot him at some point. Maybe you don't want to really, um, but in the end, she does. She reclaims her power through a phallic object, with a gun. I did kind of know how that scene would play out. A, because it's building tension very intentionally. And B, I saw it on a YouTube compilation of, oh yeah, you're not gonna shoot me, and then they shoot him. I saw.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, oh, that's where I've seen this before. And like it all like came back to me.
Yeah, that happens sometimes. Also,
No.
this movie being in 96, it has cell phones used in a way that's probably a new concept to a lot of viewers of like, oh, they're using the cell phone to get out of trouble. She didn't know this guy had a he didn't notice that he had a cell phone in his front pocket, so she grabs it out and like that must have been a bit more thrilling back then of like this is a new way to get out of trouble and trick
Yeah.
somebody.
Oh, some people have cell phones.
Yeah,
Like business people and mob people have cell phones.
yeah,
Nobody else.
I
Um,
like that aspect.
yeah, it's always interesting seeing the old cell phone, like in Hook, and even as a kid, I got this because like it didn't, phones weren't as big. But like in Hook, Robin Williams, he has a cell phone, and that's like he's a serious businessman. He's really working too much and not with his kids because he has a cell phone, and that's it. Um,
Yeah.
but we get some really cool shots of blood in the white paint because I don't know.
It's just it's just cool.
No, it's striking imagery. It's
Yeah.
just striking. It's just contrast.
I remember watching kids. I mean, whoa. I mean, watching movies as a kid.
Well, to be fair, I thought you meant the movie Kids.
Oh yeah.
I was like, what about it? You're the one who made it weird. Go on.
Watching movies as kids and like seeing people with phone like car phones and being
Oh yeah,
astounded. Like,
that was the
whoa.
lap of luxury. That was insane.
Yeah.
I mean, you could get a car phone. I mean, you could have one like the '60s, I think, if you were really balling.
If you're James Bond.
Yeah, if you're James Bond, maybe. R.I.P.
Yeah, well.
R.I.P. Our IP. Uh,
Nintendo's IP because they're putting a James Bond game on Switch too, baby. That's right, folks. We just watched the Switch 2 announcement this morning. No, but
Okay.
okay, final thoughts on Bound 2. I mean Bound. Fuck. That was a genuine mistake.
Bound 2, it's a great
That
musical.
was a genuine mistake.
I think Bound 2, I think it's very post-ironic. And I remember people talking about it in one of my college classes. I was like, wow, pop culture's really changed. No, Bound. I mean, it's a great thriller, and I think it's a landmark in queer cinema. Um, I'm glad the Wachowskis seem more at peace with themselves now.
Hell yeah.
Uh, it's good. That was the worst sign off I've ever had on this show.
I'm just worried, like, I don't know.
Worried what?
They haven't
Whoops.
done anything since, well,
Dude, I
Lena
think,
Lena did Matrix 4, but like they
and
haven't done anything
but and
together.
that was her. She was kamikazing that franchise. She's just like, I'm just gonna do my last thing with it, and then I think they're trying to make a Matrix Five like unrelated, just without him. Which it is an odd thing to me. Like, I understand giving her a lot of creative freedom, but like, I mean, all of them signing off on when the movie is clearly shitting on the idea of a Matrix sequel. They're like, yeah,
Yeah.
well, but even in, and I didn't even watch them, but the Jurassic World movies, isn't the first one like they're making like a genetic abomination of a dinosaur, and that's kind of a metaphor for what the Jurassic World movies are. It's like we're digging up this old DNA and modifying it,
I don't
and
know if it's that smart.
I don't know. I haven't seen it. That's takes I've read of it, but I don't know if that's in the text of the film itself or if that's just commentary.
I don't know. It was pretty mediocre, boring, kinda.
Yeah. Well, we have a fourth one coming out, and we all know the fourth ones in a franchise are the best. Or excuse me, the seventh one in a franchise are the best.
Yeah. Well, it's just yeah, Matrix Resurrections 2021. Yeah, they haven't done anything together since Jupiter Ascending. I've heard some people really like Cloud Atlas, but I haven't seen that
Some
one.
people really like Cloud
There's
Atlas.
like a director's cut. No, there's not. I think people wanted a director's cut or like a longer cut, but
Yeah, because I think the book it leaves out because it's a long book. My uncle's really into that book. But I don't know. But I think they're doing other side projects. And also I think they're older. They're in like their 50 and like they have their Matrix money and they just want to like chill and do their things. I don't know. Be nerds.
hey, you know, they've definitely impacted the
Pop culture, yeah.
pop culture in general. Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely with their red pill thing, they have to be like Oppenheimer, like staring into the camera sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Anyway, thanks
You're
for listening, everybody. If you want to support us, we have over 180 episodes of The Harbor. We have a dozen video essays now. We have a tie-in film. You can watch that in the description. There are plenty of avenues to continue your adventure on the Kino Cowboy channel. What are we doing next? Let me pull that up real quick for you guys, and I will tell
While he
you.
pulls that up, I'm gonna plug my Instagram, Scott K Comedy. I got some shows coming up probably that I'm not gonna look up.
All right, next will be our Easter episode, The Last Temptation of Christ. So look forward to
Yeah.
that on
And I'm also going to
420.
talk about Jesus Christ Superstar just because it's one of my favorite movies.
You are welcome to it, my
You
friend.
don't have to watch it, you should, but it's very different than the last temptation.
Really?
It's not the same thing. Um,
Wow, first I've heard. Anyway, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next week.